why don't we wait a couple more minutes here, see if anybody else, jumps on, and then we'll get started. Did anybody have a chance to look at any of the materials that I sent? I know it's a big old packet. And it's okay if you didn't. I was kind of going through them this morning. And there's one here that it's just a little write-up that's quick to read. State and local solutions are integral to protect democracy or protect election officials and democracy. And I might go ahead and let me put this in the chat. And you can look at it while we wait. Let me see.
Martha, I was looking again this morning. I don't think I got that link to the Google folder. I can't find it.
Oh no. Okay. All right. Then when I'm going to try and
Send it to.
well, I can't. I'm sorry, guys. I'm having a little trouble with figuring out where to put stuff here in Zoom.
Rachel, can you put the Google link in the chat?
Yeah, 1 second.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Oh, goodness gracious. All right, here's chat.
I know she can find it faster than I can.
So this was linked through this thing that I just put in the chat. So first is the folder. And it's a very thick folder, and it goes through some peer-reviewed research, and then what we called in my class research forms. And so those were basically interest group reports. And there's summaries of all of this. And then the students also had to collect current events. One of the things that they collected was so some reports from like the Bipartisan Policy Center. Well, I think that may not be in there, but the Brennan Center as well. Oh yeah, Martha equals John Schmier. I'm going to tell my husband that. The link that JS just posted in the link here, or the link that's right here, is one to some solutions to the problem. Okay, so for some reason I can't see. Oh, there we go. This is what I want to do. I'm trying to get it to show me everybody. I apologize. I'm a little, is everybody there?
You mean on the Zoom this morning?
Well, yeah, because, okay, I'm sorry. I'm having issues.
We have Sarah, Sarah LeVere, Shara Blackburn,
Sarah,
Rachel, Leslie
Rachel.
Garvin, Greg Randolph, Catherine Thomas, Catherine Comp, and then the AI that's taking notes. And me and you.
Perfect. Okay. So, all right. Well, I think we have a good group of people this morning, as I was saying before, folks, before everybody was on, as far as I could tell. Pat couldn't be here this morning, so I'm going to run the meeting. I have shared a screen with you, which is the agenda that we have for this morning. But before we do that, I just want to do quick reintroductions. I want everyone just to say quickly who they are and who they're with. Just because I think, even though, we'll get to know each other, as the time goes on. It's been a month, and I want us to make sure that we're all familiar with each other and comfortable. So I'm Martha Croft. I am your coach, and I'm a professor at UNC Charlotte, as all of you know. Let me throw this to Jennifer next.
Jennifer Roberts, I'm also in Charlotte, consultant with the Carter Center. I've been working on fair, safe, and secure elections in North Carolina since 2021. And I'm one of the steering committee for the Election Commission. And I'm a former mayor of Charlotte. I'll throw it over to Sarah.
Hi, I am Sarah LeVere. I'm the elections director in Brunswick County, North Carolina, and also the current president of the North Carolina Association of Directors of Election. And I will pass it over to Leslie.
Good morning. I'm Leslie Garvin, and I'm the executive director of North Carolina Campus Engagement. And I will throw it to Greg.
Hi, everyone. I'm Greg Randolph. I'm a professor of pediatrics and public health at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And I will throw it to Shara.
Good morning. My name is Shara Blackburn. I am a licensed attorney in Wake County. I've been with the Attorney General's Office and the North Carolina Licensing Board for General Contractors. Since '04, I have been working with the Wake County Board of Elections, and since 2012 have been a chief judge for the Board of Elections. And let's see, pass it on to Catherine.
Which Catherine?
Yeah, there are two of them.
I can go
Huh?
first. I'm Catherine Komp. I am the editor of NC Local, a weekly newsletter about the news and information ecosystem across the state, and a longtime journalist in nonprofit media. And I'm going to throw a link in the chat. Our newsletter last week was all about how local news organizations are covering democracy.
Yay. Well, then we have one more Catherine. Why don't we just throw
Oh
it
yeah,
to
toss it to Catherine.
Hi, everyone. I'm also Catherine. I am a senior at Duke University studying public policy, and I grew up in Henderson County, North Carolina. And is that everyone? Rachel?
Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Capon. I am also a consultant with the Carter Center. I've been helping Bob and Jennifer execute the North Carolina Election Commission and previously helped them with the Trusted Elections Tour, which we are planning to do again this year. So I'm just helping out with administration and anything that you all need. So I'm happy to be here.
So
Can the AI introduce themselves or no?
I think Pat wanted the notes from the meeting, so. Soon, I'm sure AIs will be happy to introduce themselves, so.
That's true.
Hey, thank you guys. So first off, I want to tell you that we have arranged an election law update session with Paul Cox, the attorney with the State Board of Elections. That's going to be a session that any commissioner across all of the committees can go to on February 13th at 4:30. And I believe Rachel sent the Zoom link this morning, so everybody should have that in their email box. I'm sure Sarah already got that this weekend because didn't all the state election directors hear from him? So he's going to be telling you similar things that he told state election directors at their training conference this weekend. So the next thing to talk about, well, let me quickly go to number 4 and tell you that at 9 o'clock, Professor of Political Science Jason Roberts is going to join us at our meeting. He's going to talk about a survey that he did of election directors and poll workers across North Carolina during last year or the year before. And I told him to focus on sort of the threats and harassment and what the implications of that have been. So he only has about 15 minutes. He teaches class at 9:30. We'll just get that information and get out. So I just wanted to let you know that's going to be going on. But the third thing on the agenda is, so Michael Bitzer has developed relationships with a lot of the university polling organizations here in the state. And we want to devise across all of the committees questions that we would like to ask North Carolina voters that we think would help out with our whatever it is we're studying. So I don't know if anybody has any ideas for polling questions that we would want to know about election administration issues. Does anybody have any ideas? Sure.
I'd like to know how different smaller rural counties differ from the larger counties in the way they administer their elections. Because I think that's part of the problem. Personally, I'm seeing a viewpoint from Wake County, which is ran very well in terms of my opinion. But I suspect we're getting different perspectives on a rural level.
So there are some, what about questions? So we'll say to the voters or to the population, how well do you think elections are run? And then we could take those data and say, here's what people in rural areas say versus here's what people in urban versus, you know, suburban areas say.
Right.
Or we could divide it up by county. So how well is election administration run? This is, and the bigger question too, maybe is something that we talk about in the committee. So I'm going to make a note of that. So a question on how well do you think elections are run? Any others?
So since one of our areas is poll worker recruitment, and this is a poll of the general public, I'd be interested in devising some questions around that. Have you ever been a poll worker? If not, why not? You know, do people not even know how you do it? I'll be honest, when I first started becoming a poll worker, I went to the website in Guilford County, I filled out the form and never heard from anybody. So then I called and then I followed up. And then the inverse of that, which I don't know how to formulate that question, is maybe, are there any recent concerns about that? So, you know, so I was a poll worker, then I was a election day specialist, and I was a judge. And I'll be honest, after 2020, I don't do it anymore because of fear.
I don't blame you.
Yeah,
I can understand.
That's a great point, Leslie. I know what I'm seeing on this end in Wake County, but I think this is in large part of the bigger problem is people aren't educated. If they're not working the elections, then they're not understanding a lot about how they're run. So a lot of this is coming from, I don't know about miseducation, but a lack of it. And if they got in there and they worked the polls, they would, I think most would feel a little more secure about how these elections are run.
Excellent. Excellent point. I really love that, Leslie. That's a great idea. Great ideas, both of you. Anybody else have any ideas? You come up with something, or if you think of something that you would like to see. So the steering committee is going to meet tomorrow. Yeah, Shara.
I'd like to know, if you polled this question, who would be willing to work at polls versus who would be willing to be an observer? I think you would find the divide interesting.
Oh, that is interesting.
It's what I'm seeing here in Wake County is Republicans outnumber Democrats in terms of observers, but Democrats outnumber Republicans in terms of poll workers.
Well, and this,
go ahead.
Sorry. This is probably not a polling question, but it's still something. I think I may have brought it up in the last meeting, but I mean, any of us that have worked the polls know that there is a need for younger folks. And so we've tried our best at our organization, you know, to recruit youth poll workers from our colleges and universities. But yeah, I'd be curious is it possible with that question of have you ever worked the polls and to give age range? So that even, at least from that data, we can get a sense of those who say yes, definitely are skewing older.
Great point. We standardly, and I'm sure we'll do this too, but we'll make sure we emphasize it. We'll ask how old the person is or what age range they fall into. And so we can divide the data by that and analyze, you know, here are the older people who have worked the polls, here are the younger people that have worked the polls. So that's great. Wonderful.
And as we're getting answers, maybe we can also provide some solutions. I think students should be encouraged to get extra credit in these political science classes by working polls.
Martha, that's on you.
I'll do that. Okay, since you say so. Since you said so, Shara. Actually, I sent a student over to Met County's election board, and he's already been back to me saying he's working on getting college student recruitment of poll workers. So he's supposed to come to my class sometime and recruit. Boy, it's funny. He was going to go interview for another job, and I'm like, why are you doing that? Go work. They'll pay you $15 an hour to work in Mecklenburg County. And if I recommend you, I'm pretty sure Kristen will hire you. So, but yeah, yes, definitely. I mean, I wonder, I might talk to them if it's possible we could have just a college student sample of some sort. That's because what I'm hearing is, so yesterday in the election voter access, one of their populations of interest is college students and college students voting. So maybe we need to do maybe we can figure out a way to do a college student survey sample. So I'm going to write that down too, because what I'm hearing is that we may want to figure out if they want to be poll workers and other ways of volunteering around elections.
Leslie, does your office do that, Leslie?
Yeah, well, what I was going to say is if we can't figure out how to do that through this polling process, it's certainly something I've been interested in doing with my 39 campuses. I just don't have the structure in place. You know, I'm not a poller. I don't know how to do polling, but I could certainly, if someone would create that and the process for it and the analysis, I can certainly send it out to my network.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, great, Jennifer. Great work, you guys. I love it.
I have a question about demographic information. In addition to age, will you also be asking like gender, race, ethnicity, anything about like zip code or county so we could see where people are responding from?
You know, this is interesting because Michael also sent some High Point data. And they have some great data about how much people know about elections. So of course I jumped on that because it's one of my research agendas. And I asked them if I could get county, and because we have some data on how much social media election directors are pushing out. And we wanted to see if the social media was related to how much people knew about elections. And he was kind of circumspect, I guess, about giving me data on county. He was worried, I think they worry about anonymity, but I'm going to push for us to maybe get that, because I agree, like knowing that by county can be helpful. And at least I think if we could provide, you know, Sarah, for example, here's what people in your county said, you know, that may be able, and in a nice short form report that, you know, didn't take a lot of time when she's trying to prepare for things, that might be helpful. So,
well, the challenge, you have to look at the sample size, because if there are only, 500 respondents out of 100 counties, you may not get all the counties covered, right?
Well, that's right. You're not going to be able to make an inference to the county, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to say that's true of Brunswick County. Good point. Good point. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so the next thing that I have on the agenda, we told you that we're working on getting the Princeton Bridging Divides team. They're trying to track threats against election workers. And I heard them at a conference last month, and there is a North Carolina representative. So Jennifer is working on bringing Tom Baker. Would it be okay if we invited him to the next meeting? Would you guys be up for that? So it'd be a little bit more about election director violence or election worker violence. Okay.
They also track political violence, kind of outside of just the election, the polling booth, et cetera. And it's interesting to see trends in North Carolina and to hear about that. And he is actually located in North Carolina. So I think he'll be really interesting.
Definitely. So I had mentioned that I had sent a packet of information, but I also, so this is the next thing on my agenda. I'm going to stop the share on this. Oh, there's like 7 chats. Let me make sure I haven't missed anything. Oh, goodness gracious, I have. Report from issue 1. Oh, thank you, Catherine. So Catherine put a link in here, a report from issue 1 about college student poll workers and the possibility of making use of the federal work study program. And maybe we as a committee could list that as something that we think that the state should try and push for, if we wanted to. Thank you. That's excellent. And then what else do we have here? Oh, thank you. Who put these questions in? Oh, Rachel? Oh, Greg. Thank you, Greg. Perfect. Okay. And let's see. The rivalry challenge. I was the news editor of the Chronicle last year and led our recruitment efforts this year. So I loved seeing our funds roll in to support our work. What is the rivalry challenge? Oh my goodness, there's a lot more in here. Competition between student papers at Duke and UNC in support of student journalism. Oh goodness. All right. Is there anything anybody wants to follow up on anything in the chat? Because I want to make sure we get through our stuff before Jason starts. Greg, are you?
I have a question. Within that Google Drive folder and some of the links that were just shared, are there specific things that we should prioritize for reading and research and prep with the issues that we're focusing on?
So I'm gonna jump into the Drive if I can here. Let me see. Give me 2 seconds, because I did open it.
I can give a little bit of an outline to that. What a lot of the committees are looking at, recognizing that you may have, 14 different things that are pertinent, but not every single one of those is going to get into your final recommendations. And so that's why the polling is helpful. What are people concerned, confused about? What could make a difference in running our elections smoothly? And so we should prioritize, what are the top 5 things maybe that you really want to delve into and provide recommendations for? Certainly, I think there are 40 states that have passed some kind of legislation to protect poll workers or, make it a bigger crime, whatever. So there may be recommendations there. The training of younger people sounds like a good recommendation. So there are things that we need to prioritize for each committee, so that you don't, end up with a tome at the end.
Well, so this is a good point. So I think what I'll do is not show you right now because Jason will be here in a couple of minutes. But there is an article that link that I put in is the state and local solutions, things that we could actually do. That was linked from another article that was within the packet of information. But if you look at the shorter versions of things, are the interest group reports in that packet for the information. And so a lot of groups like Issue 1, and we want to think about Catherine's work as well. I don't know if we used that in that report or not, but the research forum things, there's an article from CISA in there, an article from the National League of Cities. CISA is the computer security, national homeland security group that's trying to think about security and safety issues, and a couple of other studies. You might go through those, but the state and local solutions one is good for actual things that we could do. So on the other side, focusing more on what Jennifer just said, and I'm sure Rachel will let us know when Jason gets here, we'll see. So Jennifer is absolutely right. We want to make sure that we're prioritizing. So we started with election violence. We have some other things. So I'm still sharing these are things that we talked about last week that we were last month that we were most interested in. And I guess we did talk about philanthropic giving, but I think Sarah made a really good point last month that, after 2020, many election directors and counties are going to be very reticent about taking those funds. It makes a lot of sense. So we had talked about maybe talking about election administration funding. I don't know how you feel about. Is that something you guys are interested in, or things from this list that you wanted to prioritize, or do we want to put these in an order of what we'd like to be able to get to?
I think how elections are funded is certainly an excellent topic. I think I would almost put philanthropic giving on a back burner.
Mm-hmm.
I think that may be opening up a can of worms.
I mean, I'm not sure that there's anything we can do about it at this point, and I'm not sure that there's anything we should. I mean, the state made it not legal. Hi, Jason. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm all right. We were just discussing some of our priorities for this committee. I'm going to stop my share because Rachel, can you make it so that he can share whatever do you have slides?
I do have a few slides, yes.
So, folks, this is Dr. Jason Roberts. He is a professor of political science at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And he's just written a book about ballot design and some of the history behind ballot design and looking at things like, well, it's a great book. You might want to pick it up if you have time. But he is happy to come to here to talk to us this morning about some surveys that he has conducted in the state. Jason, if you don't mind, will you take it away?
Sure. Thank you very much for having me. So the genesis of this project came from the fact that in addition to being a professor, I'm also on the Board of Elections here in Orange County. I used to think I knew a lot about elections until I was sort of in charge of running one, and then I learned I didn't know very much. It struck me very quickly of how important the human side of elections are, and the human capital of our elections are probably much more important, I learned, than our rules and regulations, which is what I'd spent most of my career studying. So last year at some point, I had the opportunity to work with Director Bell to conduct a survey of election directors in the state, along with their full-time staff and some poll workers. I see Sarah is here. She was very helpful with us. We had, I think in the end of the day, I think we got 95 directors out of 100 to respond to our survey, which my colleagues who do surveys for a living found that pretty hard to believe, but I was persistent in calling people and getting them to do this. And so I have a full report if anyone's interested in it. I'm happy to share, but Martha had asked me to speak a little bit about some of the changes in the way directors and staff are seeing the work of elections, and maybe we can talk then about the consequences. I don't have a ton of time here, so I'll quickly go through these and then take any questions before I run off to class. Hold on. Make sure I can share. Is that working for everybody?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so we ask a lot of questions about the workload, the stress, other factors that people are seeing in their jobs working in elections. And so here we're asking about, has the workload of the job increased since 2019? You can see the most common answer for both election directors and their full-time staff are that it has a lot, and almost no one is saying the workload hasn't increased. So workload is up. Job-related stress since beginning their current position. I should add here, about half the directors in the state are relatively new. I think since 2019, we've had maybe 45 to 46 turnover. So most of these people are new in their jobs. So job-related stress is way up. Look at, directors, 86% of directors are saying their job-related stress has increased. Threats against election workers. So we ask, what's your perception of what's going on out there in the world with election workers? Sadly, no one is saying that threats are decreasing. Overwhelming majorities of directors and staff are saying that threats against election workers have increased. Do you expect this to get, more frequent, less frequent, or stay the same in the future? Overwhelming majorities are saying they expect this threat situation to get worse moving forward, not better. Percent indicating they've personally been threatened. It does seem that directors absorb most of this. About a quarter of our directors have personally been threatened. Not as many threats to full-time staffers and poll workers. So I guess if there's a kernel of good news, it's that the directors are absorbing this and not passing this down. How concerned are you in future elections about your personal safety, the safety of your colleagues? verbal harassment, being assaulted on the job. Again, overwhelming majorities are either somewhat concerned or very concerned about this. You know anyone who's left this election work because of this? Most people don't know people who have left because of this. So I guess there's some good news there that we don't know of a lot of people leaving because of this. And okay, I'll stop my share there. That sort of ends that part of the survey. But the big takeaway from this is that the environment has changed dramatically, I think, since 2020, and the amount of harassment, threats, just general difficulty of doing this work. When you combine the increased scrutiny, which, I think it's fine for people to take a look at what we're doing, but the threats, the harassment, the the FOIA request, and the workload has just gotten huge, and the technical term there. And counties have just not kept up for the most part in terms of the resources they're providing to these individuals. And so I think we're, a big concern I come out of this project with is that we are probably in great danger of losing some of our best people in this business. Some people are doing this for their civic duty. They like doing this. Most of our survey work, especially with staffers, are saying, I'm doing this because it's a good job. It has benefits. It pays well. So that's great. But I think, the kind of skills that people are developing now working in an elections office, those skills are translatable to other jobs where they likely don't have to worry about getting harassed and threatened and followed home and all kinds of things like that. So I come out of this super concerned about this environment that we're facing. And it's, anything we can do, I think, to either educate the public or in any way get a message out that, we don't need to be blaming the referees here. We don't like election outcomes. These are hardworking people who are applying the state law as best they can. So I will stop there and take any questions or any thoughts you guys have and how I can disseminate this more broadly or get this in the hands of people who can help us make sure we keep high quality people running elections, because I think we all know if we lose our experienced high quality people, we're going to have more problems, and that's going to feed this cycle of people not happy with how elections are being run. So it's a dangerous point we're at, and I don't have any good answers, so I look forward to hearing from you all.
You guys have any questions for Jason?
I just want to jump in and say that I love the work that he did on this. Jason, this is fantastic. And I think that where the people who really need to see this is probably the county commissioners, because they are the ones that fund the local county boards of elections. And a lot of times when they're looking at their budget overall, the elections department's probably not very high on their priority list when they're making cuts. And same with the General Assembly. They fund the State Board of Elections, who the counties rely on to be fully staffed to support our functions. So, making sure that the people who are controlling the purse strings for state and county elections offices, I think, is going to be paramount.
Yeah, some counties have been successful in getting their staff members, their directors reclassified into positions that pay more. If you dig into this, in some ways there's a haves and have-nots counties out there. Some counties are doing quite well. Orange here, we're doing quite well. I know Wake is doing well. Sarah, I don't know what you would say your situation is. I think it's one of the better ones. But there are people out there who are really struggling, and it's, I agree. We need to get this in the hands of county commissioners, but in a lot of cases, these people are the problem. When you look at who's out there stirring up problems, sometimes it's outside, or sometimes it's unfortunately our elected officials.
So, I mean, I guess the point is, or part of the point is that we could use this commission to raise this information up, not just to the state legislature, but also to county commissioners. I don't know that that's something that we really talked about as a steering committee. I envisioned many of our recommendations going to the state, but I think you make a really important point, Sarah, and that this really highlights it. Is there anything else, like big findings from this, that may not have to do with threats and harassment that you'd want to point out, Jason?
Well, I mean, some good news is most people who are working in this field really do enjoy their job. They find it rewarding. So there's a lot of good news in there, but you know, the big takeaways is how the world has changed. I think that the 2020 environment is hanging with us, unfortunately. You know, one thing about reaching out to county commissioners versus the state, this is a question I don't have a good answer to, is whether it would be better to have more state support for county boards of elections, or if we want to leave this to counties. And I don't know the politics of this well enough across the state or across all these counties to comment on this. I'd love to hear Sarah's thoughts on this. I know that, you know, in some of the counties that are doing better, I think they fear state interference. And I think in counties that are really struggling, they could use a lot of help. And, you know, I think most directors will tell you that the problem is we're only as good as the weakest links, that if there's a problem in another county, you're going to hear about it, even if it's not even if you didn't do it, you're going to hear about it. Your voters are going to be upset about it. And so we're really only as strong as that weakest link. So I would like to hear your all thoughts on that.
I have a question. How much are we really sharing, those of us that are in big counties, well-funded counties, how much are we sharing best practices, things that we have already baked into our system with some of these other counties that are maybe struggling?
So I mean, I know Sarah probably has some thoughts too. I want to get a quick answer to that. So I've been on the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. I've been on their board. I've been a commissioner. I've been a commission chair. It's been a little bit of time, but what happens with election funding is you're funding, you know, social services and community colleges and things that constituents see every day and care about every day. And so when you get to your priorities, elections are at the bottom, right? Because there aren't people dying, there aren't families being separated, there aren't children who are going hungry. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. So, you know, my thinking, I put this in the chat, was that yes, we do need to support rural counties who don't have the tax base, and we could do it through something like a clean water fund, make it an election worker fund. And I don't know how you would have grants and apply and that kind of thing, but certainly the state has a surplus. And that could be something this committee could recommend if we, you know, when we are discussing what we're going to recommend, we could vote to do that. The North Carolina Association of County Commissioners has an annual meeting. Bob and I presented at it last time to talk about town halls to help people understand how elections work and how important it is to be funded. And so that's also another outlet to reach counties. Sarah, are you going to feel free to add?
I think that we do our best to share with the counties that don't have the capacity that maybe Wake County does with their 50 employees. I don't know how big they are at election season, but they have the capacity to bring in a lot of temporary staff. And so even when we're sharing things with the smaller counties, they may only have 2 employees. So their director is the one processing voter registration forms and sending out absentee ballots. So they don't have the capacity to add, let me refresh my poll worker training, for example. They just don't have the capacity because they're doing the day-to-day, and they don't get the, I think, support and the funding to add staff, because that's really, I think, what it takes. I've always thought that as a medium-sized county, I have 6 employees. I'm very fortunate that I don't have to be responsible for all those day-to-day tasks, but a lot of directors do.
Oh, bingo. That's part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be curious if there are models where there are alternative ways of building capacity. Are internships a possibility? So anyway, I'd be interested in us looking at models nationwide or even in our state where folks are finding innovative ways.
Did you ask about internships or anything, or how they staff? That wasn't part of your work, was it, Jason?
No, we didn't talk about that. That's an interesting idea. I mean, I don't know. I'd want to hear from directors as to whether getting someone who's eager but untrained showing up in the middle of an election is going to be more helpful than harmful. But you know, because again, this is not the kind of work that you can. It's not really on the job kind of training. You've got to do this right from day one. And with the scrutiny people are under, it's, you know, directors, it's all going to flow up to them. And so I do fear they'd be hesitant to hand out work that they could end up in trouble about.
Well, right. That is, and if you have 2 staffers, having an might be more work than help. You're right. I mean, I wonder, we'd have to figure out how that might look, Leslie, because I think, again, this is another place where we could get with the campus engagement and, you know, work with that. Maybe there's ways to train people in a bigger office and then send them to a smaller office. I don't know. There must be a way.
Yeah, I think you'd want to have some training before they show up to work.
I would think it would be more worry than help if we sent some, but we could work around that. Does anybody have any specific questions for Jason before he takes off to go elucidate all his ideas to the wonderful students of Chapel Hill?
This is Greg. Sorry, I'm off camera. Jason, thank you very much for joining us. I was struck by your comment about how much you learned kind of like on the job being in the local Orange County election board and whatnot. And I was wondering, I was thinking about, for us to make recommendations, it might be good for us to better understand what it's like, the process and whatever. So I was wondering if any of you knew of like a short video or something of kind of like what it's like on election day, or what it's like building up to election day, kind of like a little mini documentary or something like that. But that could be good for all of us to see, I think, to kind of get a feel, since we can't go and watch, to get a feel for what it's really like.
Wake County can provide videos and their training materials to give you an idea.
I want to be very aware of Jason's time, because it's 9:16 and I know you have class. Do you have any closing remarks before I kick you off to go teach your class?
No, just let me know how it can be helpful. I mean, if any way I can get this information to people who can act on it, I'm happy to do so. And I do think getting out the message about what this work is like is great. I think there are still people out there who think, you know, election administrators work 2 or 3 days a year. And if you spend some time in the office, you understand, you know, I mean, I'm sure Sarah will back me up. I mean, our office hasn't slowed down. I mean, we went from the municipal right into the primary, and then we're going right into the general. It's nonstop. There's no downtime in elections. And I don't think people really understand that.
No, I absolutely don't think they do. All right. Well, let's give him a hand here. I really appreciate your time, sir. And we may very well be following up with you soon. So
thank you very much.
I think we'll want to include some of your information in our report. Do you have a link? Is it up on the web yet, or is it?
It's not, but if you email me, I'm happy to share it with you. So
perfect. Okay, then I will email you and we will share it. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
So can I jump in? I'm thinking about this last thread of comments about, are there documentaries, are there and we know that county by county has training materials. I would still say there's the opportunity or recommendation of modernizing something around this, even if it's just being a poll worker in North Carolina. These are the steps. Talk to your local county. You know, this is an age of technology, and I still don't think that our elections embrace that. And so I think, you know, for people who are just curious, what is a poll worker, right? It could even be being a poll worker in North Carolina. We need you. That sort of a quick something, just so that the average citizen who says, hey, I wonder how you do that, could just, and so what does it entail? You show up on, you know, you get training, and then you come to the election day, you stay in your precinct, or you could be sent around. These are the different opportunities: an election day specialist, an election judge, just a quick, it could be 5 minutes, but we just have to modernize some of this to create access. People jump online in a minute and will look at something, as opposed to doing all the work to go, okay, let me look online and go to my, so anyway, just some thoughts.
I think you bring up a good point. We need to push the idea more, and it needs to be at the door when you come into the polling stations. I know for Wake County, it's a little pad of forms that sits at the registration desk, and it's very informal. It's really not pushed, so it gets overlooked. So I think we need to have a little more publicity around it, a little formality, maybe at the door when you come into the polling stations. And that goes for early voting too.
I can also share this because I'm on the committee for public education about elections. But I think those are really great ideas. I wanted to also ask, is there a spreadsheet that lists all the counties, their funding for elections, the number of staff, the number of poll workers, so we could see which ones are staffed up and which ones aren't, and maybe think through that as we're discussing what like a pooled fund would look like, to really have that data to be able to communicate, you know, there's X number of counties that are underfunded.
That's a good point.
So that data, as far as I know, is in all different places. So that's one thing that my research team has been working on. And I wish Sarah had come back because I'd like to see what they see on their end. Actually, Chapel Hill has put together a lot of like all of the county workers kinds of information, but I can have one of my students work on. So there is data accessible on the expenditures from their audited expense reports. You can get how much is budgeted from budget reports. You can get the staffing from the Chapel Hill information. So sometime in the next couple of months, let me see what I can do to pull that together for us, because I think that's a great recommendation, Catherine. And I also, this idea about like how available, you know, the information is interesting. And maybe we can work with the Civic Education Committee that you're on. And maybe that's like something that we could do joint across committees, is to try and push or even figure out how we could produce some things like that to help out. I like that. Yeah. So Jennifer really wanted us to sort of figure out what we're prioritizing. I want to just get back to that really quick before we leave. So let me share again the list. So
Martha, sorry, Greg? Martha, this is Greg. On that, I had an idea, and you can get rid of it if you don't like it, but I was thinking, what if we sent out this list, but with explanation? I think we had some more in-depth like information about what each of these titles means. Maybe it was in our introductory, like when we were choosing which group we were on or something, I don't know. But
okay.
And then have, if Rachel could like create, I don't know if it's easy to do, but create some type of poll or something where we could just rank order those things after we sit down and really think about it. Because it's hard for me to do it like on the fly today. Because some of these I don't even know exactly what's entailed, you know, in that topic. So
can you do that,
just Rachel timing in. So yeah, that's very easy. I can set that up and have that sent out. It would probably be maybe a little bit afternoon before I could get that together and sent out to you all, if that's okay. But yeah, that's super easy.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rachel. So we do have, I know we have somewhere more detail on this, don't we, Rachel, on the various areas?
I believe we do. And do you want me to pull from that list, or do you want me to use this list, or?
Maybe when we vote, or however we vote, or however you vote, because it's your committee, I'm just the coach. We could have that information there with it. So it gives a little more detail. Does that seem, no, Greg, I think it's a fabulous idea. It gives us a little more time to think. And I think that's definitely what we should do. So let's do that. Everybody good with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I think some of our discussion has been helpful, like big picture, like we need to get rid of the philanthropic giving, and you know, so I think we've already talked through some of what these what these final choices might be.
Okay. Well, okay, before we wrap up, I'll just say, so next month we're looking at bringing in Tom Baker from the Bridging Divides Initiative at Princeton. Is there anything else that we need to think about for next month's meeting, which should be on what, the second Thursday of the month? Is that what we've decided? Is that right? Or the first Thursday? Rachel, what are we?
Second Thursday.
I believe, yeah, I believe it's the second Thursday. I can verify that, clarify that in the email that I send out with the poll.
Perfect. And so we're working on getting Tom Baker, and so that's all I have today. If anyone else has anything to add, I think we've had an amazing meeting. Thank you, guys.
I think by
Shara and then Catherine, go ahead.
I think by our next meeting, some of us that are actually working the polls may have some additional information as to how the primary went.
Right. Are you working early voting?
No, but I am working day of.
Right. So we'll ask, and what'll be interesting to hear is also how, the ID stuff went. Is Wake County, Wake County isn't one of the 10 that's doing the, well, I guess that's neither here nor there. That's not our committee.
We're doing the ID. We're trained to do the IDs right now.
Yeah. Well, they're doing signature matching in 10 counties, but they're doing it after to see how it goes. So you're going to do it after the canvas. So
I have a feeling that's more related to the absentee ballots.
Exactly. Exactly. Catherine, did you had
yeah. Oh, I just wanted to thank everybody. Lots of great ideas and suggestions and insights. But also I think Rachel or Jennifer may have sent this out, but could we get a reminder of our deadlines for, when we have to have draft recommendations, just to kind of see at a glance how we're doing and keeping up with everything?
Rachel, can you make that so?
Yeah, so I can include that in the email as well. I know most committees are aiming to have like kind of the draft recommendations together April and May, and potentially trying to get some public input back on those findings in May/June, because the next in-person meeting where the committees are to be presenting those draft findings is in July.
So that gives us a little more of a deadline than I was kind of thinking we had. I mean, it seems like to me that at most we could get maybe 1 or 2 more topics kind of studied, unless we had some offline sort of thinking about things. So that's interesting. So I guess bear that in mind when you're voting, but I also think that we could probably, there's some really neat ideas that came out of here. Alternative ways to build capacity that we might want to, we could probably develop something and then get public input on that, right? How much sharing is going on across the counties? The idea of having a state fund is interesting. Maybe we could build out some of these and just get the input and see where they go. Yeah, I guess we'll work on that.
Can I quickly ask, Rachel, in the notes, are you going to have all those links that were in the chat? There are some really good reports.
I know, I wanted to go back and grab them.
Yeah, okay,
yes, ma'am. Yeah, I will include all the resources in the notes.
Perfect.
Thank you. She writes a good set of notes, Rachel, so. All right, well, let's close. I just want to thank everybody for their time. You're all very busy people. And if you have anything you want to follow up with, send me and Rachel information, whatever you have to follow up. And if you come up with any more poll questions, I think that would be particularly welcome because you guys had some great ideas. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Alrighty. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Have a good one.